Next, we'll hear from International Advocates Against Mandates, Terra-Lynn and Coggan.
I'll go talk to the sheriff for a second. He pulled up the wrong person.
He didn't take 7 out, did he? No, he didn't.
He doesn't stop. I asked him to.
Good afternoon, Madam Chair, fellow committee members.
If you sit, it will allow us to hear you.
My apologies. Thank you for this opportunity to come before you today and present. My name's Terra-Lynn Coggan. I am the International Ambassador and founder of International Advocates Against Mandates. I'm a vaccine injury survivor. I am a casualty of the U.S. vaccine regime of 40 years ago. I have 2 children who are extremely vaccine injured. I am the caregiver to vaccine injured individuals. I have currently in my care a geriatric autistic individual. Dad was a teacher for many years and Mom a housewife. I'm working with this individual so I can integrate her into society because her parents do not know what will become of her once they are no longer here. I'm the founder of Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day Canada. I lobbied in 2005 the Department of Health and Wellness to recognize October 15th as Pregnancy and Infant Loss Remembrance Day. My nephew, Riley Joseph, he was a full-term stillbirth, who I was to adopt him. My sister, a vaccine injury survivor herself, with multiple inflammation issues, ulcerative colitis, Crohn's, autoimmune issues triggered hemolytic disease in my nephew. He was born still. The medical staff could have intervened to save his life. They made no effort to do so. He was the catalyst of my advocacy and my nonprofit endeavors, which I have endeavored to do out of my own pocket so that I could bring individuals together from across the world and around the globe so they may know they are not alone. It was not at the time that I experienced the death of my nephew that I had made the connection with regard to a prior vaccine injury and his resulting stillbirth. That did not come in later years. I'm now 16 years removed from that. As for my part, as I said, I'm a vaccine injury survivor. I was born in New York State. My family are Canadian. My grandparents brought me here in 1986. The Minister of Health of Wellness is my third cousin, which I'm not sure that he is aware of that. But yes, I have every right to be here and to present before you. I'm an infertility warrior. I've experienced 17 pregnancy loss, 14 prior to the stillbirth of my nephew. With regard to fertility, an estimated 48.5 million couples worldwide struggle, and that's from the WHO in 2010. They struggle with infertility. 4.1 million deaths of infants less than 1 year old were reported in 2017 by WHO. An estimated 2.6 million stillbirths occur annually worldwide. Again, that's from the WHO. Between 17 and 22% of pregnancies result in miscarriage annually. This is from the Risk Factors in Miscarriage, a review, a European Journal of Obstetrics, Gynecology, and Reproductive Biology, a paired review manual, journal. I had prepared a presentation. However, yesterday, our experts who came forward on our behalf covered the content of that. So I have decided that I will read a letter from a lawyer in Ontario who herself cannot be here today. Please bear with me. I have absent seizures. I'm an MS warrior, and so if I lose myself or you lose me in the middle, it may be that I'm just having an absent seizure and I just need to come back, and it will only take a second. To the members of the Standing Committee on Law Amendments, Legislative Assembly of New Brunswick, with regard to an act respecting proof of immunization, dear committee members, and I'm reading, to clarify, I'm reading this in the context it's presented to me. I did not write it. Dear committee members, I am deeply concerned about the attempts to impose mandatory medical procedures. Are you? 25 years ago, my husband and I watched helplessly as our 4-month-old baby boy had seizures following his DPT vaccines. The horrific memory is one I cannot erase from my mind. My baby lying on the changing table, his eyes rolling towards the back of his head. My son had suffered a severe vaccine injury from the DPT vaccine, and our life has never been the same. The DPT vaccine that injured my son was known to cause neurological damage, and as a result, was later replaced by the DTaP vaccine, in which the acellular pertussis component is considered to cause fewer adverse events compared with the earlier DPT vaccine that contained the whole cell pertussis component. Before the shots were administered, we were not given any information about possible adverse events, nor were we given any information about how to identify adverse events or how to report them or seek medical help. As a result of this vaccine injury, my son suffers from neurological problems and a multitude of challenges. He is now 25 years old with severe neurological problems, with severe disabilities. He cannot be left home alone. He requires ample support, and his therapies and special care are ongoing, challenging, and costly. At the age where his peers have completed a college or a university program, started working and have meaningful relationships with friends and significant others, my son sits on the backyard swing and blows soap bubbles. Like a 3-year-old would. He is taken on going to the park. he is taken on outings to the park or the local library where he reads Thomas the Tank Engine books. He is an eternal child in an adult's body, and the future does not seem bright. My son is part of a generation suffering from a significant rise in neurological disorders: autism, Tourette syndrome, seizure disorders, tics, attention deficit hyperactivity disorder, autoimmune disease, life-threatening food allergies, asthma, Crohn's disease, and mood disorders. My son's vaccine injury has been the start of my own journey of learning. It has made me acutely aware of the need to preserve and protect people's rights to decide what is done to their body. This is why I care deeply about the legal, ethical, and medical right to free and informed consent with respect to any medical intervention, including vaccination. It is also why I feel it is extremely important to protect individuals' human rights to exercise choice based upon their religious and conscious beliefs, which may lead them to refuse all or some vaccines or other medical interventions. That is their right and freedom, governed by the Charter of Human Rights. I am a lawyer and a member of the Law Society of Ontario. As a lawyer, I care deeply about protecting and upholding individual liberties. I care deeply when I see Canadian government's actions which aim to deprive people of their right to decide for themselves if and when they want to inject vaccines into their bodies and or into the bodies of their very young children. In my opinion, such legislation violates various rights enshrined in the Canadian Charter of Rights and Freedoms, the Charter, and similarly violates rights protected by the New Brunswick's Human Rights Act. In my opinion, the changes proposed by Bill 39 violate parental rights. The bill goes against medical rights, including the right to free and informed consent, the right to privacy and the right to privacy of medical information. It also contravenes the extreme, precious right to education. In these submissions, I shall focus on problematic aspects of Bill 39, viewed from legal, human rights, and public health perspective. Bill 39 represents failed public health priorities, focusing an inordinate amount, pardon me, I'm dyslexic, I'm going to trip over my words from time to time. I've removed a lot of challenges to be here today. I was diagnosed as high-functioning autistic. I'm assessed at the 100th percentile of nonverbal intelligence. I do not need physical speech to interact with individuals. So if I trip and stumble over my words, I ask for you to be considerate of the challenges that I have overcome myself to sit before you today. I have received extensive speech therapy, physical therapies, so that I can sit here and interact in a world that I had no ability to interact in. I was advanced when I was born. I was walking and talking by 9 months old. By 18 months, I was injured by I was vaccine injured. My ability to walk, talk, use the toilet was denied of me. I was part of a generation when child psychologists, and this happened in New York State, pardon me, and I'm coming back to myself because I need to come back to this because this is very emotionally triggering for me. I'm dealing with unresolved issues, and I'm seeing my fellow man, woman and child, suffering the same fate that I myself had suffered. I taught myself to read and write, and that is how I'm able to sit before you today. I have overcome monumental challenges to be here today. I have MS. My health has been already denied of me. I have no fear in sitting before you today. What more can you guys take from me? I'm facing my premature death. I am 40 years old. I have children who cannot interact in the world. Where will they be when my life is denied of me? I have extreme pain. I have chronic seizures. You wouldn't know that because people think seizures are flailing around and falling to the floor. That is not the case. Seizures come in many forms, many absent as I stare idly into time and space, like my child did when I witnessed her vaccine-induced injury. You see, my eldest child was born a boy. A bouncing, healthy, happy baby boy. At a routine vaccine, my child let off the emphasis. Do you have this?
I have to take my glasses off to read.
This is me. Encephalic. I can't get it out. I'm going to trip over my scream.
Encephalitis?
Yeah, a scream which was triggered by his vaccine injury, her vaccine injury. My apologies for respect of my child and my child's gender identification, my child's vaccine injuries. My child dissipated before me and began staring idly into time and space. My child lost their hearing within 3 hours. 3 days later, I went back to the pediatrician and I said, my child cannot hear me. They tested my child's hearing for neurological to see if there was any neurological damage. This conduction was still there. Ma'am, your child does not have a hearing impairment. There's something wrong with my child. Help me. My child recovered to a certain extent, became hyperactive. My healthy, bouncing, coherent child had dissipated into nothingness. I raised my child for 3 years, and to the point that my own health was impacted by my ability, and it took away from me my ability to care for this child. Because you see, I have an autoimmune condition which is induced by a vaccine injury. And the stressors caused by providing care for this extremely hyperactive individual impeded on my ability to function in the world. My corrupted immune system has turned in on itself. It's a hyper reflex. So psychological stressors from illness, my body can't identify that. I fill with inflammation. I get hypotonic. I begin to seize. My brain is under constant attack. And I'm overcoming all of these challenges to sit before you today. I would have stood here if I was standing here by myself. If you're not aware, I'm the individual who lobbied to bring this hearing forward today. I would have done that single-handedly if I was standing up by myself. I'm so grateful to have so many people here with me today to give voice to the struggles we have collectively endured. And I'm asking you to utilize empathy in making a decision that is in the best interest of individual and collective rights moving forward. This epidemic that we have created, this can of worms that will never be able to be dissipated, will never go away unless we today make a stand for a change, for a brighter future for our children. They deserve it. We deserve it. I'm going to go back to the letter. Bill 39 represents failed public health priorities. Focus on an inordinate amount of attention and resources on attempts to push people into accepting a ever-increasing number of vaccines represents failed public health priorities. A review of leading causes of death for Canada show heart disease, stroke, cancer, chronic respiratory disease, and accidents among top causes. I also note that in recent years, there is an increase in deaths from hospital-acquired infections, including C. diff and MRSA, and an increase in opiate and other drug-induced deaths. In contrast with these real major health concerns, the recent media-induced hype over measles presents a total loss of perspective. While there are occasional outbreaks of infectious disease, such as measles, mumps, or pertussis, these causes do not result in a significant number of deaths or permanent injury. It is regrettable that in mainstream media, the risks associated with not vaccinating are being overstated. Public discourse on the issue of vaccines has become one-sided. The public hears a choir singing with a single voice, praising the benefits of vaccination, overstating their efficacy and safety, while understating their risks and causing severe adverse events. If you are old enough, you may remember a time before this well-orchestrated public relations campaign. You may remember a time when young parents did not worry or become anxious if their child caught chickenpox or measles. A time when sick kids who caught an infectious disease, be it measles, mumps, or chickenpox, stayed at home until they were healthy. I might add, they also acquired immunity for life, which we no longer have that because of vaccine-induced synthetic immunity that has been robbing us of our health. There was no particular fuss. No newspapers bothered reporting the fact that a student from his or her school had contracted the disease or visited a specific clinic to receive treatment. Today, our health infrastructure is quite improved compared with the situation in the mid-20th century. This means that we have better ways to treat infectious diseases in the event that they cause complications. For example, we have several effective treatments for various complications of measles. If measles leads to an ear infection or pneumonia, the use of antibiotics will typically resolve the problem. Further, the World Health Organization recommends using vitamin A protocol, which has been shown to significantly reduce morbidity and mortality rates. Statistics of health and infectious disease demonstrate clearly that in modern-day Canada, vaccine-preventable diseases do not represent a major health concern. This is not simply because vaccines have been so effective. Much of the improvement in health results of infectious diseases is attributed to improved sanitation, clean drinking water, better sewage disposal systems, animal and pest control, better hygiene, hand washing, improvements in housing and reduced crowding, improved food safety, and better nutrition. If you're wondering about my ice chewing, I have pica because I can't get the minerals and vitamins into my cells that I need to function in this world. I eat very little, but because my body's turned inside out, those vitamins and nutrients that I need are now in adipose cells on the outside of my body instead of inside of my body where they need to be to feed my brain, to so I can breathe, so I can function. I'm going to move forward, and I'm just going to go over the bolded material. This will be provided to the clerk of the committee, and it can be distributed among the members. The vaccine industry is lobbying to create an environment in which use of their products is required by law. It appears that those promoting Bill 39 have tried to rush the passing of the bill. This is very troubling since the proposed amendments have far-reaching implications. The amendments infringe upon medical freedom and upon important constitutional rights and freedoms. Therefore, their consequences should be considered carefully. Currently, Section 42.1b of the New Brunswick Public Health Act respects parents' rights to religious and conscientious-based exemptions from vaccination by allowing a written statement of objection. There is no evidence that respecting parental rights to decision-making for their children has caused significant health problems. The proposed amendments set a dangerous precedent, not only here in New Brunswick. However, the health minister is looking to set the gold standard not only for New Brunswick, but for Canada and internationally. I said that, unless we put medical freedom into our Constitution, a day will come when medicine will organize itself into an undercover dictatorship. Some attribute these words to Benjamin Rush, one of the founding fathers of the United States, who was also a physician, an educator, and a humanitarian. Regardless of who said it, these words themselves carry an important message, and I will restate them to you. The proposed amendments set a dangerous precedent. A wise person once said, unless we put medical freedom into our Constitution, a day will come when medicine will organize itself into an undercover dictatorship. Unfortunately, these words ring very true today. An extremely profitable pharmaceutical industry has organized itself into a powerful lobby, pushing for mandatory use of their products, which include, however, is not limited to vaccines, and using public health officials or elected representatives to do their bidding. By bringing mandatory vaccine legislation, one need only look at New Brunswick's lobby registry and see how lobbyists working for vaccine manufacturers, such as Merck, Sanofi Pasteur, and GlaxoSmithKline, or working for industry-related companies engaged in intense lobbying activities with the Minister of Health, the Premier's office, and others. And I might add, if you have the opportunity to go and search that registry and look at the chain of events that occurred, first you will see the lobby began, then you will see this outbreak started. After these individuals were vaccinated, and we still have not been able to acquire that information under the Freedom of Information Act as to how many of those individuals were in fact vaccinated prior to them contracting the illness which they were vaccinated for. Here is a small sampling of vaccine industry's recent vaccine-related lobbying efforts in New Brunswick. An entry from March 2019 reports that lobbyist Dennis Burnside, representing Sanofi Pasteur, engaged in meetings and written communication with Minister of Health, Premier's office, seeking to raise awareness of vaccines. An entry from May 8th, 2019, and this is the date that I was alluding to, the meetings that occurred before this outbreak was called. First came the push to vaccinate, then came the outbreak, and then the demonization of unvaccinated individuals. For the record, I am a vaccine injury survivor. My intelligence is assessed at the equivalent of a PhD degree. I have the ability to go and search independent, peer-reviewed research and compare it with my own notes. As again, an entry from May 8th indicates that Sean Kenny, a lobbyist representing Merck Canada, was in contact with Blaine Higgs, Hugh Fleming, Robert Govat, Dorothy Shepard, Ernie Steves, Mary Wilson, Leanne Jardine, Kevin Puther, Tina Leclerc, Erica Craig, and M. Wise. The listed description of the focus of Kenny's activities explain as follow. More specifically, representations are made to support a favorable and knowledgeable environment to implement new or improved current immunization programs. Kenny was not the only lobbyist working to promote a favorable environment for Merck. Pardon me. New Brunswick's lobby registry shows several other lobbyists working to promote this cause. An entry filed on August 6, 2019 notes that lobbyist Stephen Burke from GlaxoSmithKline engaged in activities described as follows. Focus is healthcare policy and medicine/vaccines. Those MLAs, senior public officials that typically run programs or have a direct or indirect interest on decision-making in that area. Some examples include members of the drug plan team, the public health team, or staff senior folks within the Minister of Health office, or the minister himself. There are other entries which detail lobbying activities by vaccine manufacturers seeking to promote vaccines and policy. Despite the somewhat vague descriptions of the lobbying activities, the inescapable conclusion is that vaccine manufacturers were heavily involved in lobbying for legislative amendments that will make their products mandatory. This does not only include vaccines. If you're not familiar with the Mental Health Act, please take the opportunity and familiarize yourself with that and the rights that are being taken away from those individuals. And as I said in my opening statement of this letter, we have an extreme health crisis on our hands with individuals with various conditions who are struggling specifically with mental health issues. I'm from St. John. We have Monday, I believe it was, or possibly Tuesday, we had 3 people in a 2-day period that attempted to jump off of the Reversing Falls Bridge. They send them back and they pump them full of more medications and stuff and disturb their biological, and they're trying to run away from themselves. They're trapped. I would run away from myself if I could get away from myself because I'm full of chronic pain.
Ms. Coggan, your time has now expired.
Thank you for that. Do you have any questions?
Actually, we don't have time for questions.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.